Hey everybody, it's Christina Holloway here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about how to deal with a narcissist, but most importantly, a narcissist who is your boss. This can turn into a complicated topic real quick, so today I've organized the video into 3 sections. First, I'm going to make the distinction between being a narcissist and having a narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. There's a difference. Then we're going to talk about what the personality traits look like for a person who is showing signs of narcissism. And then we're going to talk about techniques you can use to deal with a person like this. Real quick, if you enjoy this content and want to learn more about how to succeed in your career, make sure to follow my channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video from me. All right, so let's get started. Okay. So first, we want to understand the difference between someone who is your garden variety narcissist and someone who shows signs of having a narcissistic personality disorder. Yes, there are some commonalities, but there's also a major difference. For a narcissist, I'm going to go with WebMD's definition here. Narcissism is extreme self-involvement to the degree that it makes a person ignore the needs of those around them. While everyone may show occasional narcissistic behavior, true narcissists frequently disregard others or their feelings. They also do not understand the effect that their behavior has on other people. It's important to note that narcissism is a trait, but it can also be a part of a larger personality disorder. Not every narcissist has narcissistic personality disorder, as narcissism is a spectrum. People who are at the highest end of the spectrum, however, are those that are classified as NPD. People who show signs of narcissism can often be very charming and charismatic, and they often don't show negative behavior right away. This is how you can get hired by someone really cool and then they turn into a nightmare. These people often like to surround themselves with others who feed their ego. They build relationships to reinforce their ideas about themselves, even if these relationships are superficial. There are 2 different types of narcissism that narcissistic behavior can fall under. These 2 types also dictate the different ways people will behave in relationships, professional or personal, meaning how they relate to other people. Number 1, grandiose narcissism. People with this behavior are most likely treated as if they were superior or above others during childhood. They tend to brag and be elitist. They're just full of themselves. These people can be tolerable, and most times you'll notice that the others around them just laugh or roll their eyes as you know, at the bragging. Very quickly, though, you'll have that person figured out. Number 2, vulnerable narcissism. This behavior is usually the result of childhood neglect or abuse. People with this behavior are much more sensitive and they have overwhelming feelings of inadequacy. Even though they go between feeling inferior and superior to others, they feel offended or anxious when others don't treat them as if they're special. They'll position themselves as a victim many times because when you show empathy or sympathy, it feeds their sense of self. Both of these types of people can be exhausting, but when this narcissism turns into NPD, it becomes even more problematic. People with a disordered sense of self can be destructive, and they don't see and don't care how they're impacting the people around them. People with NPD will often make up scenarios and live inside those imaginary narratives. They talk about themselves as the hero or someone who had to save the day, even in the most obscure situations. They have no control over their anger and rage, and they can't stand being wrong or worse, proven wrong. They will never, ever admit their mistakes. In fact, the statement, "well, it's your fault for not telling me sooner," or some variation of that statement is a common excuse. And last, they are vindictive. They will hold a grudge and they will take revenge, and you never really know when it's going to happen. They're disruptive, unpredictable, and destructive. And if you've gotten to this part in the video and thought, that's exactly who I'm dealing with, well, you're not alone. In fact, this is the person that most people talk about when dealing with a narcissist, the one with the broken sense of reality. Now, you may have already had to deal with this person, and you may have already been burned. So the question is, how are you supposed to deal with a chaos agent? How did that person get to where they are? And how are you supposed to survive this? All great questions. So my first answer is that it's complicated. Why? Because these people are unpredictable. And once you fall into their bad side, it might be very difficult to recover from that judgment from them. Let's assume, however, that you're just realizing who you're dealing with here, and you need some techniques that will help you survive until you can figure out your next move. Here are 5 techniques that could help you navigate a boss who is a destructive narcissist. Number 1, prepare yourself for the experience. You might have a new job and just realize this person is not who you thought they were when you were interviewing for the job and then got hired. And now you're here with personal obligations, and quitting isn't something you can do. All right, so as I mentioned in my last video, I worked for a narcissist boss for 2 years. She definitely had NPD and she was definitely unbalanced. And because they're unpredictable, you never know when they're going to decide they just don't like you and they'll just fire you. For that, you have to be able to look at your personal situation, make peace with the idea that you're working for someone who has a broken approach to building professional relationships, and that there are aspects of the work that will be completely unpredictable. You'll feel you have more control of your situation once you have a plan B and a plan C in place to help you deal with any unforeseen fallout. That means you might have to accept that you might need to apply for unemployment or borrow from someone or even move back home temporarily. Just make peace with a worst case scenario so you know this NPD person cannot ruin you if they turn on you, because they could try to use it against you. Well, if I fire you, then what would you do? If you have an answer, they can't use it to control you or even ruin you, because that's what they're looking for. Number 2, find their vulnerability and use it. All narcissists have insecurity. They are driven by feelings of being inadequate. They have no self-esteem and no self-confidence. It's their biggest vulnerability. Once you figure out how they direct that insecurity, you can make yours self-valuable. For example, maybe they get feedback that their presentations are always missing information, and they immediately try to find someone to blame for it. You could have an opportunity to ensure that their materials are always accurate, and you want to remind them in a subtle way, hey, I saw that the feedback mentioned this data from the presentation. I decided to make sure you had the full report with the highlighted outline so that you can answer that question the next time. And the kicker, I can't believe they brought that up anyway. Don't they know we're not at that phase of the project just yet? That's going to go a long way to validating their victimhood for them. Number 3, help them succeed. I have a client. She's working with a colleague who is completely incompetent. He was on his way out with a PIP when their boss had a change of heart. Their boss showed signs of NPD, which he figured out. He started feeding his boss's ego and helped her look good, and suddenly their boss was singing a different tune. My client is baffled as to how this incompetent person is staying on the team when he can't do his job. That's true. He probably can't do his job, but he did know enough how to save his job, and he knew exactly what angle to use. He found an insecure person with a fragile ego, fed her some lines, took the dirty work to make her look good, and then appealed to her sense of heroism by asking if she'd mentor him so he could learn her leadership style. It was genius. It's not good for my client because they're all driving her crazy, but his moves were brilliant. Find that angle. Number 4, develop an exit strategy. I had a boss who was a crazy narcissist. I had scheduled vacation time and I planned the entire trip. She and everyone else on my team knew about it and I had requested it properly. And the day before I was scheduled to leave, she told me she had not approved my vacation because I didn't ask her the right way. Another time I had scheduled vacation after traveling for weeks on open projects, and she said she didn't think I needed vacation since I had just come back from traveling to such great places. I was gone for 3 weeks, and that was for work. I wasn't sightseeing, and I was exhausted. I'm also just realizing that she figured out that vacation was important to me, so that's what she used to manipulate me. Anyway, it went on from there. She was crazy. She came up with crazy ways to try to dominate all of us. In fact, the first red flag was when I joined the team and 3 of my colleagues who I was looking forward to working with decided to abruptly leave. So I was very careful and I started figuring out how long I needed to stay in that department before I could leave. I figured out where I could go. I started making connections, and the last move was to have someone refer me for a project so I could get out of there. Once it was approved, I packed up my desk and I moved when she wasn't there in the office. The next day she came in and my desk was empty and I was gone. And that's how she found out I was moving. Why? Because she would have done anything to make the process difficult for me. And as you can see, I didn't do this alone. It took other people who were in on it to help me move. She was eventually fired, but not soon enough for my liking. You may not need to go through that extreme, but figure out where you can go next. Be careful who you talk to and plan for the least amount of time you need to stay there while you build your skills and experiences. Do the best you can to have something to look forward to. If you don't, you could fall into hopelessness pretty quickly. And number 5, never show weakness. This type of boss wants to embarrass you in front of other people. They enjoy humiliating other people. The more you act like a person who can roll with the punches, the more you'll confuse them. Do your best, though. It is not easy to be above it when someone's putting you down in front of people you like and respect. Do your best not to cry or get angry or get defensive and argue. They are waiting for you to do it. That's what they want. Do your best not to give them what they want. The best way to do this is to remind yourself that you don't have insecurity issues like they do, and that when they behave this way, it's because you did something great that others are recognizing. People with NPD are reactive and jealous. When they act out against you, it's because they're absolutely threatened by you. They resent something about your existence, and they enjoy trying to knock you down. Always remember that when they're reactive, it's because you're doing well. It will be confusing at first because normal people don't act that way. Normal people build others up. And that's the most important point. You are not interacting with a normal person. Like one of my clients told me, I had to leave because I needed to get back to doing great work with great people. I didn't have time for the drama. And that's it. People with NPD always get left behind. All right, so that's it for how to deal with a narcissistic boss. Let me know down below in the comments if you've had experience working with a narcissistic boss and how you handled it. I'd love to hear your experiences, and I am happy to share more of mine in the comments below. I have a lot. If you enjoyed watching this video and found it helpful, please make sure to give it a big thumbs up by hitting that like button, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss another video from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.